I was try this again. My mic was muted. Sorry. All right. So, if you guys don't know, I'm KD. I'm gonna basically be talking to you guys or bring you guys a video about the college football committee. Did they get it right? Did they get it wrong? Keep in mind, I don't work for anybody, any one of the conferences or the committee or whatnot. This is basically from my viewpoint, what I see, and just trying to give you guys a different perspective when it comes down to what I see when it comes down to some of the different teams and so forth. Some of the teams that I'm going to talk to you guys about, they're different in their record, some of their wins, some of their losses. Uh, I don't talk about like point differential. I don't talk about like turnovers or nothing like that. Basically, I'm just going to talk to you guys a little bit about their schedule, some of the stuff they had coming into the preseason, and then basically how they fared based off of their schedule. Now, um, the one thing is you guys see the rankings. A lot of people try to push the strength of schedule thing onto everybody. Well, knowing what we know historically, um, the strength of schedule is always going to be in favor of the team that have the better conference. So, for instance, the SEC, who's traditionally right now in the last 20 years, I guess, um, they have had the better teams. So therefore, they'll probably get the nod in the strength of schedule. Now, no team makes their schedule when it comes down to, hey, okay, we want to play this particular team on this particular day. Those things are kind of set in play when it comes down to the SEC or any conference. So you're going to have, let's say, 6 conference games, and then you may have, 6 out of conference or whatever, depending on the conference. So with that being said, is basically saying you have these particular schedules that are already kind of out there, and then on top of this, it's not made up on the fly. So it's like years and years in advance of who you're going to play out of conference. So, for instance, me being an Auburn fan, Auburn has a play-in with Miami in a few years. So right then and there, I already know as soon as that schedule comes out, I want to say it's 2024, I know Auburn is going to play Miami in a play-in game in a series that's probably going to last for 2 years. So if that happens, this is exactly how that schedule comes into play. So the year to come, hopefully Miami will stay good or stay relevant to where now that doesn't show up on the schedule as a cupcake. So that's how it works when it comes down to some of the scheduling and stuff like that. So some of the things I'm going to also talk about or basically put on here is other teams getting their fair shot. I just don't believe all the teams around the top 10 are going to get a fair shot because of that whole notion of the strength of schedule is the reason why this particular team is ranked higher than this other team. Me, I always view, especially when it comes down to this particular system that they have, until you come to some order of precedence of, hey, okay, the SEC loser of the SEC championship is always going to get the nod over the winner. Over the winner of another conference. Then, until you put that order of merit out there or whatever it may be, you can't come up with it on the fly. To me, it's unfair. To me, it's unfair. Should be a no-brainer. Hey, I got a conference winner versus a conference loser. Hey, and then, oh yeah, by the way, they have a better record. Once again, if you're gonna say strength of schedule, right? I'll show you some of the issues with saying strength of schedule. Because if you say strength of schedule, so what you're telling me is if I have a two loss team that has a better strength of schedule than a one loss team, and oh yeah, by the way, them being in a different conference, so now you're basically saying, hey, you're going to give that particular team the nod because they went through a tougher route. I just find that kind of weird because of the whole fact that, like I said, this particular team can't say mid stride, hey, I want to go to the conference that has all the better teams. We don't know how that's going to work out when it comes down to, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. We don't know if the ACC is going to turn around and be a powerhouse in the next 5 years from now. So to where now we make the schedule and we put some SEC teams and ACC teams together and put them all in the conference. we don't know if that's going to turn out to be the strongest conference. With that being said, so I just think the whole strength of schedule, yeah, it has some kind of merit when it comes down to the rankings as far as the top 25, but it should have little to no ranking if I take my team from preseason rank nothing and get them in the top 5 just to be told, hey, wait a minute, you didn't play anybody. That's crazy. That's crazy to talk like that, especially because of you don't know how these teams are going to finish. Are you a bad team because you're 3-9? Who knows? Hey, guess what? You probably had a lot of different people transfer. You probably had a lot of injuries or whatever it may be. So with that being said, you can't just automatically turn teams away because you figure they haven't played anybody. Yeah, okay, got it. They may not be the number 1 team. They may not be the number 5 team. They may not be the number 25 team. But it doesn't mean that you can't be beat by that particular team. So I just think that that particular part of it, after you get into the top 25 and it's dictated, the strength of schedule argument has to go away. It has to go away because, like I just said, you're always going to give the nod to who you. It's basically perception. Do you not have 10-win teams in other conferences? Yes. So what makes 10 wins better than 10 wins in my conference? I just want to know that. So until we can come up with that, we can't continue to use that when it comes down to deciding for the playoffs. Now, if you're talking about AP poll and all that good stuff, cool. Use the strength of schedule. It's no harm, no foul. But you can't do it to the teams that are proven they belong there. Meaning, hey, I am a top 5 team in the nation. And for you to tell me, wait a minute, you top 5 in the country's eyes, but you're not top 5 in our eyes when it comes down to the committee. So I'm gonna just basically put some slides on here, and I'm gonna talk through these slides about how I came up with certain things and so forth and so on. So it's not a lot of formulas or nothing like that. It's just rough math for me. And then on top of this is basically you looking at different ways or different outcomes of certain games and so forth. And it's basically just making an argument for different types of teams. I will tell you of note, though, I did not take Ohio State and Baylor into consideration because those were the guys that people were going to argue for anyway, especially with Ohio State being who they are, is popularity, and then Baylor being the Big 12 conference champion. People were going to make an argument for them as well. I did include one of the teams from the Big 12, and I did include a team that was on the outside that nobody was kind of lobbying for. And I'm not lobbying for anybody. I just want people to understand, like, let's look at this in a different perspective moving forward. Hopefully, the committee will change some of the stuff they're doing because even if you expand the playoffs, you still are going to crap on some teams until you turn around and say, hey, look, let's take the whole strength of schedule thing away. Until you can get every conference on a level playing field, basically saying, hey, okay, look, 10 wins is 10 wins. I don't care if you go 10 wins in the AAC or 10 wins in the ACC or SEC. 10 wins is just that. It should be just that, especially if you're in the top 5. Now, if you got 10 wins and you rank 17, got it. Understand. Why rank them so high and then just to tell them, hey, oh, wait a minute, you're not that good. You're good, but you're not that good. So when it comes down to that, that's some of the things I'm going to talk just a little bit about, not much. All right. So as I put these slides up, all right, let me go back. All right, so hopefully you guys can see that. If you guys haven't already, be sure to make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or if you're actually watching this on Twitter or whatever it may be. Be sure you just follow me. And I'm just going to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the stuff that I see on the outside. As you can see, the 4 teams in discussion is Georgia, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, and Notre Dame. And the reason why I picked these 4 teams, obviously Georgia is kind of in the doghouse with some people, no pun intended. But some people think, Georgia is basically getting a second opportunity when they shouldn't have got this great of an opportunity. And what I mean by this great of an opportunity, if there was any team, I'm not saying they'd totally be out of the playoffs, but there's any team that should have been moved down and probably been in the last spot, it was definitely Georgia Bulldogs. And the reason why I say that is because of Cincinnati won their conference championship convincingly. They are undefeated. They had to move up 2 or 3. That's a no-brainer. Michigan won their particular conference. They won their conference game. I want to say they won by 14 or 15 points, or probably more than that. I have to look at the score again. But I know they won theirs. So same thing. They can move up to 1 or to 2. Same thing with Alabama. Alabama won the SEC championship. Should move up to 1 or number 2. They was in the number 3 spot. For you to just blatantly take out Cincinnati and say, hey, look, you won your conference championship, but because these other 2 teams won, and so what, you're undefeated, your conference is not really worth anything, so you don't move up whatsoever. And in fact, you tell them to stay there, and now they have a matchup. Yeah, some people are saying, hey, okay, it's big boy ball either way it go. Yeah, it's big boy ball either way it go. I'm with it. Either one of the 3 teams that they're going to be playing against is going to be tough. Same thing with Michigan. Either one of the 3 teams that they're going to be playing is going to be tough. You're not top 4 or top 5 in the country, and you're going to basically be a cupcake type of game. It's just not going to happen. Case in point, when Cincinnati played Georgia, I want to say last year, Georgia beat them by a field goal. A lot of people were thinking, hey, Georgia was going to beat them by 35, 40 points. Hey, it's a big SEC team. Yada, 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 so forth and so on. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm an SEC hater. I am an SEC fan. I'm an Auburn Tigers fan. People that know me, I am through and through with the SEC. But I got to call it how I see it on this particular situation. This particular situation, I just think we need to give every team as fair amount of shot as they can get when it comes down to getting the opportunity to represent their conference in the bowl series. I mean, not the bowl series, but in the playoff when it comes down to it. So if you were to turn around and you expand the playoffs, but you still have this type of merit or this type of system, you're going to do this, and it's just going to be at a greater level. For instance, the Baylors, the Michigans, not the Michigan, but the Oklahoma States, the Notre Dames, those type of teams are going to get in there right now if this was the case. But what happens when you have a Houston that's sitting right there in that 8th and final spot, and then you have a Notre Dame or you have an Oklahoma State that's in the 9th spot, or vice versa? Guess what's going to happen? They're going to get the nod over Houston, because you're seeing Houston, if you go 11-1, that means nothing based off of the division, or based off the conference that you play in. Notre Dame, on the other hand, even them being an independent, the committee is basically stating we value their wins more than your wins because of who they play and how they do it when it comes down to it. If you guys don't know, Notre Dame is independent. They don't have a conference. They kind of play, teams maybe middle of the pack, or maybe the top tier teams in every conference is what they basically pick out. They play Navy most of the time. Every now and again they'll play Michigan. They'll get they got Cincinnati this year. They play Florida State this year, and they basically just hop conference to conference and play different competition when it comes down to that. So with that being said, if they navigate that schedule and they're 10-1, 11-1, or anywhere along that lines, they're always going to get the benefit of the doubt because of how they're going to be viewed if they get to that particular point with the 11 wins or 12-0, and so forth. They're always getting into the playoffs if there's anybody to be left out, and so forth. All right. Oklahoma State, reason why I put them in here is because their schedule, as you guys are going to see when I move forward, it's basically 5 things I'm going to talk about, or basically 4 things I'm going to talk about, but 5 things will be on each one of the slides. So the conference, any kind of top 25 wins they have, and any kind of top 10 wins they have, their preseason ranking, and then with their final ranking. And then basically, so what happened is as they play each one of these particular teams, I looked at that particular team's strength of schedule. That particular team's strength of schedule, and then basically they came up with a number. And I basically took that number, added them all up together, and I put an average on it. And that average was basically saying it was a representation for me, what kind of opponents they were facing throughout the year. So, and it's actually quite telling. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you, Cincinnati, obviously, you just looking at the screen, does not have a highly favorable strength of schedule when it come down to their favor. So you're basically saying there's no way possible for them to ever be the number one team in the country, undefeated conference champion, never going to be number one unless it's somebody else basically falling off the face of the earth when it comes down to losing 2 games. If they lose one, you already showed that, hey, there's no way a Cincinnati type of team would be number one in the country. Because I'll tell you this right now, if an Alabama, if a Notre Dame, if a Michigan, any one of those teams go 13-0, they're number one, guaranteed, no questions asked. Now, rightfully so, because as I told you, the strength of schedule when it comes down to the ranking, just the regular rankings, the AP polls and so forth, you can use those things. Those things are great to kind of to help you dictate who's this and who's that. Now, what I also will tell you is, hey, Georgia doesn't have the strongest schedule based off what I did when it comes down to the math between these 4 teams. So as we get into it, you'll see exactly how I came about it. All right. So first team up is going to be Georgia Bulldogs. So the Georgia Bulldogs, basically, the website I used was the PowerRankingGuru.com. It's that little website right above tail of the tape. So basically, I went to there and I looked at each team's strength of schedule based off of their particular website. And then what I basically did is I plugged that number to the right of their particular schedule, and that punched out a number or what they were. So I think it was a total of 126 teams that was on there. There were some teams that didn't have a ranking, so I just put NA. And then what I did with the NA, I just basically left it as is. I'm sorry, I didn't leave it as it is. I gave it 126. So basically saying that, hey, they were not ranked. So I just gave them right at the end and then left it at that. So with that being said, UGA final computed theirs. It gave them to about an average of a 50. They came out to about an average of 50. The conference, they played in the SEC. Where they finished, they was number 2, based off of them losing the SEC championship. Top 25 wins, they had 4. I want to say it was Arkansas, Kentucky, Auburn, and one more, Clemson. So they beat those for top 10 win teams. Not top 10. It's wins against 10 win teams. So meaning the teams that have 10 wins. They didn't have any team on their schedule that won 10 games that they beat this year. With the outside of, well, matter of fact, they only played 1, which is Alabama. So they didn't have any of that. The preseason ranking for the Georgia Bulldogs was 5. Where they finished up was 3. So with that being said, right then and there, for me looking at that, you gave this team a really good ranking, which is fine. No harm, no foul. It was undefeated before they played Alabama, which is you expect that is 100% fine. Now, the one thing that you have to look into now is what you're saying is this particular team has proven themselves against other superior talent. That is what you're saying. That based off of this, by putting them where you put them in the playoffs, you're saying, hey, this is one of the most proven top 4 teams in the country. Cool. No harm, no foul. Now we move down. Keep in mind that number 50 that I was telling you guys about. All right, so we move to the Cincinnati Bearcats. Cincinnati Bearcats is the same thing. I pulled up all the data for them off this particular website, looked at their schedule, gave them the numbers as well. Their number was 71. How is way higher, it's 21 points higher than Georgia. So just using the strength of schedule that people are trying to use and just is not using anything else, basically saying, hey, there's no way Cincinnati should be in the top 4. No way whatsoever. Right? So that's fine. You have them nowhere near the top 4 or even in your top 4, whatever it may be. But once you start to dissect it, you look at their conference. All right, they were number 1 in the AAC, which is fine. Once again, it's their conference champion. You can't overlook them being a conference champion because not all teams in the conference were 2-8 or whatever. They played a Houston team that was, I think, 11-1 or whatnot. Yeah, they were 11-1. So for them, it was like, hey, okay, this is the final test for if Cincinnati is legit or not. So top 25 wins, they have two. Obviously between Houston and between Notre Dame, beat Notre Dame 24-13. Top wins against 10-win teams, they have two of them. Their preseason ranking was 8. Their final ranking was 4. So they moved up. They consistently moved up, and they proving themselves along the way. So with that being said, is Cincinnati proven enough? Are those 2 wins against 10-win teams enough to move them into the conversation of, hey, okay, you can be number 1 or number 2 in the country? Is it? Don't know. I would love to see what's the order of precedence of each conference champion. Who, if you win this conference, then and you're undefeated, why did you stay, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 and not 1 or 2? And you're undefeated. I just would like to see that. Hopefully, somebody can, if you're watching this, point it out to me to where I can see it, to where I can say, okay, look, this is why they did what they did. But right now, just not making a whole lot of sense of how they came up with this particular situation of Cincinnati staying at 4, Georgia going to 3, Alabama 1, or Michigan 1, and vice versa. Michigan or Alabama 1 or 2, back and forth. So with that being said, moving on to the next team. All right. So the next team, the one I chose. Reason why I chose them is because they made up a lot of ground. They made up a lot of ground with the schedule that they had. And the schedule that they had, they navigated it very well. Baylor is kind of in the same situation with them, but I think I have to look at Baylor. I think they were preseason ranked, so I would have to look at it. But I'm pretty sure they were preseason ranked in the 20s. But Oklahoma State was not ranked. So their number for Oklahoma State, their number ended up being a 40. Once I added everything up and divided it or averaged it out, it was a 40. For Oklahoma State, they played in the Big 12. They were number 2. They lost the championship game to Baylor. I want to say they lost 21-16 or something like that. Top 25 wins, they got 4 of them. The wins against 10-win teams, they got 2 of them. It was Baylor. They beat Baylor earlier, but then they turned around and lost to them. And then it was Oklahoma. Oklahoma was the other top 10-win team win. So with that being said, they were unranked in the preseason, but then they finished in the top 10. So for me, they made up a lot of ground. And then as you look at their numbers, right, they have nobody on their schedule with a 68 or better. Besides Missouri State, the very first game, which is 126. But everybody else, they're below a 70 on their schedule. So for me to navigate this schedule the way they navigated it, and to come out the way they came out on it, for me that says, hey, okay, if we did have an expanded playoff, would this type of team make it in? Would this type of team make it in, or would this type of team be shortchanged? Because everybody know, you just rough math looking at it, 1 through 8, everybody's safe to get into the playoffs if we go to an 18 expansion for the playoffs. But a team like this right here will be out of the playoffs, the hunt for the playoffs, having gotten 2 wins against 10 top 10, 2 wins against 10 plus wins teams. So for looking at that and basically saying, comparing them to Georgia, which have no top 10, no 10 wins, no team they beat that had 10 wins. For me, that's a little bit of a head scratcher. Not too much, but I just wonder why that would not be in consideration, especially if you're trying to eliminate all doubt of what team gets in and what team does not get in. So, all right, and moving on to the last team, it'll be Notre Dame. I could not put them on here just because they are highly similar to Georgia. The only difference really is the fact that hey, they lost the game in the middle of the season, but it was to a 10-win team, and then they have no conference champion appearance at all. But they are similar. When I say they are similar, they have one of the teams that there's 100 in the hundreds, but everybody else is pretty much kind of low. And then on top of this, right, the thing about Notre Dame, right? The thing about Notre Dame is they came in preseason ranked high and they finished high. The other thing is, like I was telling you, they play middle of the pack or pretty decent competition in each conference. So for them to go and do what they did uh, was amazing, right? But they're never going to be rewarded for it based off how this current system is. Because remember what I told you, unless they run the table, and somebody else bumps their heads along the way, is this going to be enough to get Notre Dame over the hump, over a one-loss SEC team, over a one-loss SEC champion, or a one-loss Big 12 team, or undefeated Big 12 team? Is this going to be enough to push them over the hump? What can they do to push themselves into the same atmosphere as the other teams? And the reason why I say that is like I said, some other stuff has to be considered. Is it got to be a little bit more than just the strength of schedule, margin of victory, and turnovers and stuff like that. It got to be something else. Got to be something else to kind of level out this playing field. Because if not, you're going to continue to have these particular issues where one conference or non-conference people or teams are on the outside looking in because of the fact, hey, we're not recognizing this team as a legitimate team because, oh, we quote unquote, you didn't play anybody. That's a whole crock. I just don't like that. I don't like that because don't rank me in the top 10 if I didn't play anybody. Does that make sense? If I'm 11 and 0, but I didn't play anybody, don't get my hopes up of thinking, hey, okay, I can make it. I can make it into the playoffs. All I gotta do is just win out, or I can be the number one team in the country. All I gotta do is win out. But if I don't win out, right? If I don't win out 13 and 0 or 12 and 0, right? You're basically saying if there's another 12 and 0 team with me or 11 and 1 team, matter of fact, in some cases, they can be 10 and 2 and be higher ranked than I am. So it's just interesting to me. I just would like to know where would Notre Dame be had they not lost to Cincinnati, and where would Cincinnati be uh, had they lost to Notre Dame? Would they even be considered in the top five? So it's just something to think about. So, all right, like I said, I just wanted to come on here real quick, pop in, kind of tell you guys some of my thoughts. At the end of the day, I don't work for the committee, but if you were to tell me, hey, the committee got it right, I would ask you what particular things were you using for them to say that they got it right. It can't be just voting. It can't just be the strength of schedule. What other things are they using? If you're telling me, hey, okay, we're using margin of victory, okay, got it, 100%. We run the numbers and the margin of victory is significantly lower than all the other teams. Too easy, no harm, no foul. We're good with that. At least we have something to go off of now at this particular point. There's no need for it to, hey, okay, let's have these meetings to determine who is who. Why do we need to vote on something if the numbers themselves are right there in front of you? Just let us know what the numbers are. What numbers are we using? Are we using margin of victory? Are we using home victories, away victories? How big were they? What are we using to where we as fans, we can turn around and say, hey, okay, look, Georgia should definitely be in because of this. Alabama should be definitely in because of this. So forth and so on. And so now when you do that, right, we got those particular things, we can turn around and say, hey, okay, look, this is what they use, and this is why my team didn't get screwed over because of this particular reason. This is the things that they went off of, and so forth and so on. And it's not like it's secret squirrel type of stuff. It should be public knowledge of how it's done when it comes down to, hey, okay, these particular things are what we're using to get to this particular point of who top four teams, so forth and so on. So, all right. Like I said, I just wanted to pop in here real quick. Hopefully, it wasn't too long for you guys. Again, if you haven't already, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with my videos. And I thank you guys again for all the support. And look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Y'all have a great day. Peace.